Hi everyone, this is lesson 413, factoring more quadratics. Last lesson we went over how to factor quadratics. We're going to look at a little bit more challenging ones today in this lesson. So just as a reminder from last time, things you should know is what standard form is for our quadratics, ax squared plus bx plus c. And the tools that we were using to help us factor. So area model was one of them. And just as a reminder, when we fill in our area model, our ax squared and our c from our expression would go into opposite corners of our area model. And then when we use our diamond or X game that we've been calling it, you'll notice the BX, our middle term, goes at the bottom. And then at the top is when we multiply this diagonal, the answer would go at the top of that big X. All right, so then the steps were, if you could figure out the two missing numbers, those would be the same numbers that you would put in your area model to then help you figure out the outside, right? And so that was the process we were looking at. So as a reminder of that, let's do one problem to kind of review this. So here's x squared plus 6x plus 9. We want to try to factor this. All right. If you want to try this on your own, this is a good time to pause it to see if you're going to do this correctly. Definitely you want to test yourself out to see if you're actually doing this right. So I'll let you pause now. And then now I'm going to go over this. So I'm going to fill these in. I have an x squared plus 9. I have a positive 6x at the bottom. And then I'm going to multiply these two terms to give us 9x squared. All right. Now I'm looking for two terms that'll multiply to give me 9x squared. But they do also have to add up to 6x. So I think 3x, positive 3x, and a positive 3x. You'll notice I still write, even if it's positive, I still make sure to include that sign. It'll make things a lot easier when we start to have positives and negatives. Trust me, it's worth it to put the extra little plus. All right, so 3x plus 3x is 6x, and 3 times 3 is 9. Perfect. So I'm going to put those in the area model, which then gives us, on the outside, is going to give us x times x plus 3 and a plus 3. All right, so then our factored form would be x plus 3 and x plus 3. All right, so this is the first time we've actually seen one where the two terms or two factors are the same. So even though it can be written like this, it could also be simplified to be written as x plus 3 squared. All right, so you might notice it two different ways. I'm showing you this for a reason because this is going to come up a little bit later. All right, so in that case, since they are the same, you want to make sure you simplify it as well. All right, so that's kind of a review of that. So a little bit more challenging ones that we're going to be looking at right now are what happens if it's missing a term, or what if the terms are in a different order. So these are expressions that don't look like they're supposed to look. And so we need to figure out a strategy to help us. And so the first one is 9x squared minus 4. So this only has two terms, which doesn't make any sense because it's supposed to have three terms to be in standard form. Some of the terms look the same, so I notice there's something with an x squared, right? So that looks similar. And then I have a minus 4, but there's supposed to be something with an x, and I don't see another x here. And so what I'm noticing is this, I've rewritten it with the three terms that we're supposed to have, and I notice I don't have the x, so that means there's a missing term here, right? So there's a missing term, which means that minus 4 is really my c value. All right, so be careful there. So to make this a little bit easier for us, to make it look like standard form, let's just put a term. So what term can we put here so that it doesn't change the expression? So since nothing is here, or I'll highlight this one. So, oops. So since the middle term is missing, that's like saying this is a 0, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a plus 0x, which means 0 times x is just 0. And now I have the same format, standard form, that I need. And now I could solve this like I'm used to solving. All right, so let's just fill this in. Oops. So I'm going to put my 9x squared, my minus 4, right? Because now I'm looking at, don't forget, we're looking over here now, the three terms. And the middle term is a 0x. Okay, that's okay. 0 is a number too. And so at the top is going to be a negative 36x squared. 9 times 4 is 36. And so what I'm looking for is what two numbers can I multiply to give me negative 36, but when I add them, they give me 0. All right, so this looks more complicated, like, oh no, this is more confusing. Some people don't know what to do when there's a 0, but actually this problem's a lot easier. So 36, what I'm thinking of for 36 is 6x and 6x. So 6 times 6 is 36. Keep in mind, one of them has to be positive and the other one has to be negative, because this is a negative 36. So I'm going to make this negative. And you'll notice what happens when I take 6x and I subtract 6x. Well, that gives me 0 x's, right? 0. Perfect. So I'm going to plug those in. So this is a negative 6x. Oops, I'll put the positive first. Positive 6x and negative 6x. Oops, positive. All right, and that's it. And then you just finish this like we normally would. So this would be 3x and 3x, and this would be what, negative 2 and negative, not negative 2, positive 2. All right. So then the factored form is going to end up being 3x minus 2 and 3x plus 2. All right. And there's our factor. Right, so it wasn't impossible, even though I was missing the term. All right, so this other one is very similar, only has two terms. And so what I'm noticing is there's still the x squared. Now there's a term with an x. What's missing is that last one. So I've rewritten it just so it's clear there's supposed to be three terms. And so since this is missing, what we could put, just like the last time, is let's put a 0. All right, just so it's consistent with having three terms, and we could use that. 0 is still a number, and so we could use those to fill in our area model. So I'm going to put 12x squared, 0, and then that would be a negative 16x at the bottom. And then if I multiply 0 times 12x squared, that actually gives me a 0x squared. Technically it's just 0, but I like to keep the x squared just so we remember there's still x's involved. All right, so I'm looking to find two numbers that when I multiply them, they're going to give me a 0x squared, but when I add them, they give me a negative 16x. All right, so any ideas? All right, so let's do, let me see. All right, so this is going to be 0. Let's do 0, positive 0x, and let's do a negative 16x. All right, so 0 times 16 gives us 0, and 0 minus 16 gives us negative 16. All right, so if this is a 0 on top, one of these has to be 0. All right, so technically, even though this looks more confusing, really this is easier because the numbers are clearly going to have to be 0. So I'm going to fill these in. So let's say I'll put 0x and negative 16x. All right, so let's fill out the outside numbers. So let's do 12 and 16 common would be 4x, which would make this have to make this a 3x, and would have to make this a negative 4. Now this other one has to be 0, right? Because negative 4 times 0 is 0, 3x times 0 is 0, and that's pretty much it. So factored form is going to be 3, let me change this, 3x minus 4 and 4x. Oops, since we don't really need the 0, actually, I'll rewrite this. So 4x minus or plus 0, but let's change this. I'm going to rewrite this so it looks like 4x times 3x minus 4. I think that looks better. All right, since we don't really need that 0, adding 0 doesn't do anything. All right. And then one more on this one, which you'll notice it does have the 3 terms. So you might think, oh, there's no issues here. But they are not in the right order. That first term is supposed to have the x squared, which it doesn't. All right, so what we want to do is make sure everything's in the right order. So I'm going to rewrite this as, I want the 8x squared first, and then I want the negative 10x second, and then there's a 3 that's going to be a plus 3. Now I could use those in my area model. All right, 8x squared plus 3, negative 10x, positive 24x squared, and I'm looking for two numbers to give me 24. I know 6x and 4x give me 24, and 6 and 4 give me 10, but that gives me positive 10. So what if I make both of these negative? That would make negative times a negative gives me positive, and negative 6 and negative 4 give me negative 10. That's perfect. All right, so then I'm going to plug those in. Negative 6x, negative 4x. And let's figure out the outside. This is going to be 2x, that makes this 4x, and -1, and -3. All right, so our factors are going to be 2x minus 1 and 4x minus 3. All right, and there you go. Let me know if you have questions about these. Definitely these are a little bit more challenging ones. But that's it for now. The next lesson we will even go into a little bit more unique problems as well.